12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Monday the 13th of October 2025 and we are on to program number 1465 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And our WhatsApp number is 724-0008. We're going to send out some birthday greetings today to Mrs. Vimla Sentil. Happy birthday to you. And we're wishing you an absolutely fantastic birthday celebration. And also birthday greetings going out to Mr. Benny Hippolyte. Happy birthday to you, sir. Hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday as well. I look back in time in the year 1884 on this day. The International Meridian Conference in Washington, D.C. established Greenwich in England, London, England, as the prime meridian of longitude and established universal time. 1924, on this day, Mecca, the city of Mecca, fell without a struggle to Saudi forces led by Abdulaziz ibn Saud. In the year 1943, on this day, Italy switched sides and declared war on its former Axis partner, Germany. 1944, on this day, the Battle of Aachen saw the U.S. First Army attacking Aachen, the first German city captured during World War II. And in 2010, on this day, the Copiapo mining accident in Chile came to a happy end as all 33 miners arrived at the surface after surviving a record 69 days underground. And we now move on to our dish of the day.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at, of course, Radio Caribbean International. Now, it was an interesting weekend, again, with quite a bit of political happenings here in St. Lucia. And, of course, the two main parties, the St. Lucia Labour Party and the United Workers' Party, again, trying to muster up their supporters and persons who perhaps don't support them at all, looking to try to gain momentum, gain traction, as we are seeing, of course, a movement towards what is likely to be the calling of a general election here in St. Lucia, which is, in fact, could be as late as October of 2026. So we could be, in fact, a year away from a general election. Lots of debate as to when elections should be called. Thus, generally speaking, of course, most elections have been called before the 5-year anniversary of the previous general election. That has been the the norm and the tradition. In just maybe, I think, maybe one or two instances has that not been followed. And of course, last in 2021, the election, in fact, was called, I think, 5 years and 2 months after the previous election of June of 2026. But it does appear that, of course, both sides are looking to increase the tempo and looking at different strategies to be able to reach their electorate. Of course, in the past, elections would perhaps have involved going about from from place to place, town to town, village to village, individuals setting up meetings at different points and effectively speaking very local in how it is in fact would in fact being run. And of course, in fact, just yesterday, the 12th of October was the 74th anniversary of the hosting of the first election of in St. Lucian history in terms of adult suffrage. Of course, prior to 1951, prior to the election of the Friday, the 12th of October, 1951, it was a very different time. And prior to that, individuals had to have property. They had to they had to be literate. They had to, in fact, be able to read and write. And of course, those bars were set to effectively create a barrier for the masses, the individuals, the lumping of the population, the individuals who, many of whom at that time were effectively farm workers. They were working in the fields, in the sugar fields, and it was a very, very, very different St. Lucia 74 years ago. And coming out of that period, of course, we then eventually saw the hosting that for the first time that once individuals were of a certain age, you would have been able to actually participate in that general election. Historian Mr. Earl Huntley, Ambassador Earl Huntley, in fact, penned a little note on the anniversary discussing the that particular vote, that particular election of the 12th of October 1951. And just to read this very quickly for the benefit of listeners, it is the 12th of October 1951, 74 years ago today, and for the first time in St. Lucia, 15,778 St. Lucians voted under adult suffrage in national elections. This meant that they only had to be a minimum age of 21 years to vote. Gone were the requirements to have property, income, and be of a certain literacy standard to be able to be an elector. On that Friday, the 12th of October 1951, the voters elected 8 persons to sit in the island's colonial legislative council, which was headed by a British governor. They were Dr. Carl Lacobinier for the St. Lucian Labour Party, Central Castries, or the 1st Electoral District, Herman B. Collymore, St. Lucia Labour Party, North Castries, which then included Grosley and Babonneau, forming the 2nd Electoral District. George Frederick Lawrence Charles, St. Lucia Labour Party, South Castries, which was the 3rd Electoral District. W. St. Brown, Independent, Ancillary, 4th Electoral District. L.G.A. McVeigh, Independent for the Soufrière constituency, or the 5th Electoral District. Gregor A. Mason, Independent for Choiseul, the 6th Electoral District. A. L. Theodore, the People's Progressive Party, PPP, Vieux-Fort Labrie, the 7th electoral district, and Miku Denry, James Luke Charles, father of George F.L. Charles, St. Lucia Labour Party, and that, of course, the 8th electoral district. And so, thereby, the composition of the Legislative Council at that point became 4 for the St. Lucia Labour Party, 3 independents, and 1 for the People's Progressive Party. That was the outcome back in 1951. And in fact, that poll had been delayed. It was really supposed to have been a little earlier, I think in 1950, and it ended up getting pushed back. And so since then, we have been holding elections in St. Lucia. And of course, the back and forth, back in those days, we should point out, the election was actually every 3 years. And so then the next election was actually in 1954. And it then went on that way for a few years, a few cycles, before we shifted to the 5-year term. Of course, other changes came in addition to having universal suffrage. We also ended up creating a ministerial system, which then allowed for the executive to now, in fact, have members coming from these elected members. Prior to that, you would have had the colonial administrator, the attorney general, the financial secretary, and these people who were part of the colonial service, they were effectively the ones in charge of the government. And there was really no minister directing various portfolios. That came later on, I think in the 1954 general election is when that finally came about. And then a little later on, also putting in place the office of chief minister, which of course was then taken up by the leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party at the time, now Sir George F.L. Charles. And later on, we then eventually went in 1967 into associated statehood, January 1st, 1967. And under that system, we took complete control over the internal affairs of the island, and the island eventually saw a premier being appointed. By that time, in 1964, we saw the merging of a faction, a breakaway faction of the St. Lucia Labour Party, headed by Sir John Compton, that of the National Labour Movement, the NLM, merging with the right-wing, more conservative-leaning party representing more of the middle class of the society, middle upper class, that of the PPP. And that merger leading to the formation of the United Workers' Party. And since then, we effectively have had a sort of a two-party situation where two parties have, one or the other, have really dominated the contest. And since 1964, the United Workers' Party was the dominant party up until 1979, with only a little window in between with the formation of the Louisi government, the Allen Louisi government of 1979, July 1979. But that eventually was short-lived and eventually collapsed by 1982. And so since then, really, it has been then another 15 years of dominance by the United Workers' Party. And so it wasn't until May of 1997 where there was, in fact, a major shift in the politics of the day, with the St. Lucia Labour Party under Dr. Kenny Anthony being able to almost achieve a whitewash, gaining in the vicinity, well, 16 seats, 16 of the island's 17 seats. And of course, we've seen a tremendous change in how the politics has been dispensed since 1997. That time, there was, in fact, a large influx of new entrants into the political sphere, what had been dubbed and branded as New Labour, and coming forward with a certain level of flair and approach towards the overall politics. You would recall before that you heard of lots of terminologies like chicken and rum politics, and the politics of the day being dominated by individuals effectively enjoying the largesse of what was on offer, so to speak, through the spending of the respective political parties. And of course, the issue of money has certainly been a major factor, and financing of campaigns, and the issue of whether individuals have been induced by direct handouts, by direct bribery, effectively, has certainly been a major issue. We still do not have campaign finance rules and campaign finance legislation, nor do we, in fact, currently have any governmental support towards political parties either. And in fact, it exists in very many places where the state is, in fact, responsible for providing political parties with a certain benchmark of resources so that they can, in fact, do the basics in terms of administering and representing their various political institutions. That is not the case here. It's pretty open-ended, and that is, of course, always a risk, because what we will potentially can see is that money can then flow and influence can come from not just the inside, but also from beyond the shores of the island. And that has been a matter there's been lots of speculation over the years as to who is funding what, and where monies are coming from in terms of supporting and funding various campaigns. And of course, there will be that debate. In fact, even right now, given the current mode that we're in, we're seeing some very large rallies being organized and being put on by the incumbent St. Lucia Labour Party and the United Workers' Party, which seemingly up to now has not been putting on any sort of very large events. They are now accusing the Labour Party of spending and largesse and whatnot, which is interesting because in the past it would have usually been in the converse, in the reverse, where that accusation have been made of the United Workers' Party, because generally speaking, many times that party had been associated with the business class, the individuals who would have money to put forward into their campaign. And so it's interesting how we're seeing differences now in terms of the statement. Of course, quite often too, the argument is sometimes made that people provide donations to political parties if in fact they believe you have a better chance of winning. And so that too sometimes, if you look at US politics, is also part of that whole issue. If you've got a very vibrant campaign, you may very well find lots of people willing to be able to support that campaign by way of donations. Of course, another major aspect which has certainly changed that of how people go about with politics is that of social media. And perhaps if you look back maybe to around 2005, 2006, although that was not a major issue then, we then saw around that time the real sprouting up of social media platforms like Facebook. And perhaps from the 2011 and 26, especially the 2016 campaign, you certainly did see a lot of advocacy, a lot of vibrancy in terms of social media campaigning, the use of sponsored ads, the use of even outfits such as Cambridge Analytica became more aware. Persons became more aware of these types of agencies. That really, that's what they did. They simply were about social media marketing and how to reach voters, how to get into the minds of the voter. What does the voter like? Do those the analytics behind profiling each and every voter and effectively sending a particular well-tailored message towards that individual. So using those algorithms effectively to fit into what is of interest. And of course, the other matter is that much of that has tended to be skewed more towards younger persons and also persons of a higher income bracket. That is changing considerably because of the ubiquitous nature of smartphones at this point in time. And so it is certainly changing the nature of the political battleground space. And in the case of the United Workers' Party, for example, we're seeing lots of effort by them in focusing on social media. Lots being spent in terms of creating ads. And of course, you won't quite often see the name United Workers' Party, but you may get a page that is named something. I think there's one I've been noticing, Land and something, and the color scheme might be yellow and green, which of course are the colors of the United Workers' Party. So that might be the only association that you kind of get a sense, hey, this is where this is coming from, but it's not labeled United Workers' Party. And of course, so you get productions of individuals who are trying to sound St. Lucian, putting on, being part of these videos, these ads, with different types of messaging. And of course, each page may have a different slant, a different area that they, in fact, are concentrating on based on whatever their political analysts and data analysts are telling them, well, you need to focus on this, you need to focus on that. So, of course, that is going on. And perhaps somewhat different approaches by the two parties, at least as of now, in terms of where they are placing a lot of emphasis. The Labour Party clearly drawing very large crowds, very extensive crowds, very extensive setup in terms of their numbers every Sunday. The United Workers' Party has been keeping it very somewhat, the term as it is in the Gen Z's, low-key. They are seemingly emphasizing on reaching people at their homes through online mediums. And so you may have sometimes maybe 20, 30, 40 people in a room. But the hope is that there will be, a couple thousand who will in fact be following wherever they may be in St. Lucia. And quite often, not even in St. Lucia, but in the diaspora. That, of course, has also been, as we mentioned, diaspora, has also been one of the ticklish matters with respect to our democratic system here in St. Lucia. I remember when you look at the figures for the number of persons on the voters list, and then you compare that with the population of St. Lucia, quite often something is amiss. The voters list seems to be way too large for the population, because after you take away persons under the age of 18. Sometimes you find that the voters list is almost equaling the estimated census population. So what has been happening very often is the impact of immigration. So you have lots of people who are no longer physically on island. They're living overseas. They're in the diaspora for whatever different reasons. Some of them have completely migrated, and they've been out for maybe a good while in many instances, and they're still on the voters list. And in as much as we've seen a cleaning up of the voters list, we do have this very large diaspora that is out there. Countries like Dominica and many countries in the Caribbean have, to some degree, been actively working, and they see these individuals living overseas as part of the base, the voters base. They are on the list, and in some instances, we see efforts to actually bring those people home just to vote. So, in as much as they're not physically on the island, they're not paying taxes here, they may not even own property anymore here. They are not dealing with the direct issues in terms of government services and policies, but they still are somehow connected, and they're still on the list. You find that they end up being a resource which some parties try to utilize as to, of course, how we handle moving forward in terms of the matter of electoral reform, and whether, excuse me, whether in fact we should be making it easier for some people to be able to actually participate, and who should be able to participate, how long should you be allowed to remain on the list, given the fact that you're no longer a resident on the island. Should you still have a right to vote? Should we have the option of mail-in ballots, as some countries in fact have? Is that something that would work to the benefit of our democracy? And what is the role of the diaspora in nation building and in the politics of the country? Is certainly another matter that is right now pretty gray, but we've seen certainly in other countries where they have certainly, you've heard of chartered flights, heading to certain other Caribbean countries to ensure that individuals come in just to cast their ballot. Very expensive, and of course, you can then see how that may very well skew towards the parties that may have the most resources to be able to undertake that type of work. So it certainly is a very interesting time as we see our democracy rolling forward. And of course, at the end of the day, the important thing is the issue of good policy and ensuring that you have good people to be able to make the right decisions and to be able to ensure that government works for the people. That's effectively what is important at this in terms of having elected representatives. They are there to speak in the parliament, to parley. They are there, of course, to ensure that the right laws are passed. And quite often, unfortunately, we forget about that important role of the politician as the lawmaker. That is really critical, because we don't have a separation of powers. We have the lawmakers also being the executive. We quite often lose that check and balance. But it is important that the lawmaker is in fact supposed to be ensuring that the right laws are passed, that laws are reviewed, because that's the other issue. We've got lots of dated, antiquated laws sometimes that don't fit into where we need to be as a country, that doesn't give the kind of protections that we require. And so it's really important that that aspect is also looked at. But at the end, in addition to that, of course, the assurance that the government is actually working. We have a very large civil service, and providing a number of different services, whether it's the police, whether it's fire, whether it's teachers, whether it's other civil service provisions, the ports, all of these things have to work, and they have to work efficiently and effectively. And that's the importance of putting the right people in charge, and of course ensuring that they are also accountable in their actions. That's our dish of the day. Well, we're going to take a break for some ads. We unfortunately don't have our weather report. The Met Service site is currently down, but we will take in some ads.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Let's head to the phone lines to take in some calls. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Oh, it was very good. Thank you very much for asking. And yours? Well, no, it's not my constituency. I'm actually a resident of Grosley. Yes. No. But it was, and in fact, the event was held at the Shock Cinemas, at the Caribbean Cinemas, which is actually in Castries North. But I guess, well, it's right on the border, right on the boundary. Right on the boundary between Castries North. Well, it isn't Castries North, but close enough to the Grosley boundary. But yes, I did attend yesterday's rally to see how things were going with that event. Yes. I have not followed, to be quite honest, beyond hearing about the lady from the opposition, lady from Venezuela. There was one I also... Okay. I believe I saw that, yes. Quantum mechanics? Mm-hmm. 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 I think it's superconductors as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's coming? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Encryption? Encryption, yes. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and cybersecurity is I said cybersecurity is a major issue, and uh, encryption is a critical element within uh, ensuring that you actually have secure systems. Right. Well, that is the issue. The more let's put it this way, brain power that you have, the more processing power that you have, yes, the more that you can actually work these various permutations, and combinations, and be able to, yes, find the combinations to break these codes. Yes, so certainly, um, that is that has always been the dream. So if you, as you're getting, yes, superconductivity, it means that you can end up with faster processing power, greater processing power, and yeah, it this is the big. Well, yeah. It. Mhm. 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 Yeah. 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 But I was just over the weekend. I noticed there was an article coming out of Guyana where President Irfan Ali was touting the idea of constructing a data center for the region in Guyana. Now, these data centers, which are really the bedrock, the foundational physical elements of all that we're talking about right now in terms of AI, in terms of these massive amounts of processing, of putting everything in the cloud. They really are hosted in these data centers. And the data centers use up a lot of energy. So you're going to have cheap energy, right? Because you effectively have to be running these things at a set temperature, using up a lot of energy, and it takes up a lot of water for the cooling. So you really need them in places that have abundant water and energy. And he was saying, they're looking at Guyana as a potential location to be able to create a data center. And I mean, the investment amount that they're talking about was $3 billion. so so these are very large, yeah. and the impact it is having is astounding. Even in the United States, they were one of the studies that was being done recently. We're just looking at the trends in terms of electricity usage in the United States, right? Is pretty much it's been kind of leveled for some time. But they're saying because of these, the investment in these data centers, they're seeing a massive rise in the load requirements in the U.S. on the U.S. grid, and they're going to have to be looking at major generation expansion in the United States over the next 20 years to try to keep up with this desire to be able to have more AI, artificial intelligence being provided by so many other entities. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, 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 they're not. Well, the diaspora, the Israeli diaspora is what is critical there. The Jewish diaspora, I should probably say. I mean, the United States. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, no. Mm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it where we stand in the world is something that we have to decide upon, right? I mean, we look at countries like the United States and you look at Europe. I mean, Europe is a good example because you had a place with all these little countries and they've had to come together, right? Luxembourg doesn't have its own space program, and Italy doesn't have its own space, but they've all come together and they've put their resources together to have a space program because they understand that look, there's some things that we just can never do on our own. You have to be able to pool resources. You have to be able to cooperate, and so it really means that we have to figure out where we are going to be. Whose group are we going to be in? Because on our own, you know, a good right. Yeah, 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 yeah. It, well, they were. Mm, yes, I mean scientific research and development and innovation. It will always require surpluses to be able to undertake. You got to have enough that you can put aside to say, hey, these are investments that we're making for things maybe 50 years down the road, right? we're not going to realistically enjoy the benefits of them today. I mean, even as we're talking about with this thing with respect to the recent Nobel Prize, sometimes you have to wait a long time before these things actually actualize in terms of some major product or something that actually comes onto the market or to that makes a shift. But it may very well get to that at some point. And so that aspect is something that we have to definitely agree as a country. Look, we may not be in the position of making massive investments in terms of research and development right now, but at the same time, we still have to be thinking that it is important, and we've got to value it, and to some degree as well, you have to look at what the Asians have done. Quite often, they have not been the ones. Well, right now, yes, they are the ones on the cutting edge in terms of doing their own research, right? But that came after a long time. But for a very long time, all they were really doing is copycatting, is being the copycat, is being able to see, well, look, this is a good idea. Can we produce this? Can we use this? And so, as a country like ours and a region like ours, we really have to be just watching to see what can we use, what technologies are coming up that we can best utilize to get that quantum leap that we are so very much desirous of getting. But yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 I think the OECD recommends that countries should be spending at least 2% of their GDP on research and development. So if we at least try to say, hey, where are the areas that we should be at least looking at some of that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Right, right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. 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 And in many instances, it's just simply applying the technology. Yeah. So that's the part of the not reinventing the wheel. Exactly. That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks very much for that contribution, caller. Have a good one. And of course, it's a very important conversation, and the importance of science and technology to development. Very, very critical. I mean, when you look at all countries where they are at right now, um, they are built upon strength and advantage in science and technology and innovation. Let's take another call before we end. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. And what's on your plate today? How are you doing, caller? Okay. well, I think it's a Venezuelan lady got it, right? Yeah. Yes. Uh-huh. Mm. I'm there with you too, and I think you're asking a very poignant question right there. I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I sincerely doubt that. I mean, just like he was trying to become the Pope, I don't think he's going to win the Nobel Peace Prize or any Nobel Prize for that matter. So, um, yeah, I don't see it happening. Then again, caller, you never know. Maybe he might invade Norway. So, you know. Mm-hmm. Even though no thieves. Yeah. And of course, you're saying that Trump is a CTOS. Yes. Uh, all right, caller. Thanks very much for that contribution. And of course, very interesting points being made. We'd love to hear more of that tomorrow. And we do hope that you can join us for that program here at Radio Caribbean International's Lunchroom. And do have yourself a very safe and blessed Monday. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.
established in 1961 and still going strong.
Like, really? No. Shut up.
Radio Caribbean International. We are number one.
The future of communication is here. Say hello to eSIM at Digicel. Use your Digicel number without a physical SIM card in your phone, and your data, minutes, and SMS all there. eSIM works with prepaid and postpaid. Activate more than one eSIM on the same device and use multiple phone numbers without a physical SIM card. Convert your existing number for only $10. Switch to Digicel and get a free eSIM, free 30-day plan, and 30 gigabytes data free. Digicel, first to give you eSIM technology in St. Lucia. Available at any Digicel store. Digicel, better connected.
U.S. Polo Association is celebrating 15 years in St. Lucia. Our anniversary sale is here with amazing savings for men, ladies, and kids. Shop polos, denims, dresses, shoes, and more. All at the prices you love. Celebrate with us at U.S. Polo Association, Baywalk Mall and Castries stores and enjoy authentic style for the entire family. 2 stores, 1 iconic brand, and 15 years of fashion you love. The celebration starts October 15th only at U.S. Polo Association. Live authentically.
Winners Chow Mein, the preferred choice, offers quality regular chow mein and a variety of flavors, including carrot, spinach, beetroot, split pea, lentils, and whole wheat, all made from fresh ingredients. Also, try our ready cut and elbow macaroni made from 100% garam wheat semolina with no additives. The health choice. Our products cook totally al dente. It's the choice of every kitchen. Available at all leading supermarkets and other locations island-wide. Man, choose Winners. The ultimate difference.
Introducing our latest creation, Rum Vibe by Pitor. A tantalizing blend of premium rum, subtle carbonation, and a touch of magic. Crafted to perfection, this ready-to-drink delight promises an exhilarating experience with every sip. Rum Vibe, my vibe, your vibe, our vibe.
I hooked on the case of Domino's Pizza. I hooked on the flavor of Domino's Pizza. Always remember, nothing tastes better than Domino's Pizza. And what makes it greater is that we deliver. Service like no other. Prices are better. Always remember, nothing tastes better than Domino's Pizza.
Choose Domino's Pizza with locations in Rodney Bay, Caribbean Cinemas, William Peter Boulevard, and J4.
Attention everyone, the nomination period for the Jimmy's People's Choice is now open. This is your chance to honor an unsung hero in the tourism industry. Do you know a tour guide who shares hidden gems? A villa host who made St. Lucia a home away from home? Or perhaps a crafty creator capturing the beauty all around? Nominate them now as we celebrate world-class service in tourism. Visit stlucia.org/Jimmy's. Nominations end December 19th, 2025. Nominate today. Jimmy's 2025. Journey to excellence.
Here's how to register in Let's Bet by the St. Lucia National Lottery. Step 1. Tap on the register button to kick off your journey. Step 2. Complete the registration form with your details, making sure everything's spot on. Step 3. Tap on register to lock in your registration. Step 4. It's ID verification time. Select the type of document you'll be using and snap a picture or upload an existing one. Finally, step 5. Tap on submit image for verification and let us handle the rest. Remember to check your email for verification. And now you're ready to play in Let's Bet. Brought to you by the St. Lucia National Lottery. Changing lives.
101 number 1 FM.